Another day, another new product. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new dual battery tray for the 2019 Plus 6.4 liter Hemis in the Ram 25 and 3500. This dual battery tray is going to be crafted out of 10 gauge 304 stainless steel, comes standard powder coated black, comes pre-assembled with your threaded rods in there as well. It's going to be in a couple different pieces. So this is your main chassis. This is what's going to connect to the actual wall of the truck. You're also going to have the actual tray where the battery sits. And then we have some additional brackets. So this is going to be a pre-assembly prior to it getting installed in the truck, as well as talking about some of the features outside of what we've already listed. So the first step in getting this assembled so it can go in the truck is grabbing what we call the kickstand here. It's got 3 square holes in the bottom, 1 circle hole at the top, which corresponds with a stud that exists in your Ram truck. We are going to install this underneath the tray, and we're going to be using the supplied 1/4 carriage bolts. Now, because of variance with powder coats, some of these might be a little bit tough to get through here. They will go. Everything is laser cut, so it's super precise, but with some variations in bolts, some may be tighter than others. It's okay to massage it with a small hammer, and then the only tool you'll need is a 7/16 ratchet. We have ours on an electric Milwaukee, but a hand ratchet would do just fine. So I'm gonna stop talking, go ahead and put this part on real quick, and then we'll get on to the next part, what you guys have to assemble next. For ease of assembly, it is important to note you want to go ahead and start all 3 of these bolts prior to fully tightening everything down. But once you have all the nuts threaded down to the nylock by hand, you can go ahead, fold it back up, and use your tool to finish tightening it the rest of the way. With that tight, we can go ahead and look at installing our secondary support bracket that goes underneath of the tray and just provides another layer of cushion supporting the 60-pound H7 battery that you're going to be putting in this thing. So we'll go ahead, flip it on its side, and once again, I'm going to go ahead and just put these bolts through. And when orienting this bracket, it's kind of folded in a C. I'll show the GoPro over here. We want that C shape to be facing the inside of the bracket away from this double flanged edge. And we'll just go ahead and line up those holes. And then once again, we'll go ahead and start both nuts by hand.
You said nuts.
I'm gonna need a different tool to tighten that down, so I'll be right back with a new tool.
Gee, you're dumb.
Got a new tool, back in action here. So, like I was saying before our little break there, we're just gonna go ahead, get these guys started by hand, and then once you've got your tool, you can go ahead and start locking them in. As I was talking about a minute ago, these bolts are gonna be a little bit tighter. So again, I'm just gonna go ahead, make sure the square is lined up, and then I'm just gonna massage it here with the hammer.
It again, harder.
That's basically locking that square end of the carriage bolt into the stainless steel tray and allowing me to fully tighten this bracket down. I'm going to go back and do the top. This one is also scooching around a little bit, so I'm just going to flip this over, make sure I'm lined up, which I'm not. And then now that I am, again, I'll just massage this in place.
Better read it out of the nut, boy.
So now we have our kickstand that goes up to the threaded stud inside of the engine bay. We also have our bottom bracket as well that provides a little layer of additional support. At this point, this thing is fully ready to go in the truck. We have 2 brackets left, so let's talk about what those are. Well, this guy is your battery tie down. It's going to go over these studs here. You're going to use the provided 5/16 nylocks for that, but we're not to that point yet. We need to install the bracket first before putting the battery in, so we're going to leave that off for now. This guy right here is going to be for a Red Arc BC DC charger. This is an optional piece. This is something that you can buy on our website. However, this is not required for the installation. You guys can do more simplistic wiring, like wiring these things in parallel, but we're not going to get into too much detail on that because wiring in that dual battery is personal preference, and it's also going to vary based off the price because that BC-DC charger is around the $400 mark. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and put this on for the sake of this video so those that are installing it understand what we're doing. Same process though, 1/4 20 carriage bolts. We're going to put this bracket underneath once more. We're going to line up these square holes, flip it in an orientation that's easy for me to get that nut on. Start that first nut by hand. Grab our second bolt. Get that second one in here by hand. And then I've got better access. I'll go back to my electric ratchet here. So we've got that all in place. At this point, everything is built on the bench, your table, your workbench, wherever you guys are going to be assembling this. Maybe it's your wife's kitchen table.
I don't recommend it.
But this is ready to go in the truck at this point. So we're going to go ahead, go downstairs and pop this in our prow wagon so you guys can see what that looks like. We are now down in the engine bay of our 2019 Plus Hemi, and we need to remove a couple of things before we can install the tray. So I have a 13mm socket. That's the only socket you're going to need to get this guy installed. We need to remove the bolt down here on the bottom of this brace, the nut on the top of the brace, and then we'll remove these 2 bolts as well in the firewall. Just set that to the side. Again, set that to the side. This guy can come off completely. And then we'll move these as well. Let me get a shorter socket.
You
idiot! Back with a shorter socket. Okay, so we've got everything out now. We're going to be reusing the bolts that came out of this hole. We're also going to be using this stud as well. So I'm going to take this guy here, just carefully move it into position. And I'm going to go ahead and put it on the stud first, although it's going to kind of drop down as one complete unit. And just be patient with it. We're just going to kind of wiggle it into place here. Okay, so we've got that set in place. Going to go ahead and just loosely put that on top just so it doesn't pop back out. We still need to put this brace back in. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my holes lined up, and we're just going to force this around until we can thread these by hand. We want to go ahead and start these by hand. We don't want to run the risk of any cross threading. And then I'm going to pull a stand up because we are going to have to push down on this slightly in order to get alignment with that hole. All right, so now that we've got that started by hand, we can go ahead and start to run this in. That started here. that started. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this nut back off quickly. We're going to install our bar back in place. Flat piece goes to the top. The square piece goes at the end. Now, with that being said, you're not going to be able to get your battery installed once this is in. So our next step really is going to be install the battery, and then our final step will be to put this brace back in place. But I'm just going to go ahead and show you what that looks like here. And again, we're just starting all these holes by hand, and then we're going to snug them up. All right, and then from here, what we're going to want to do is use a hand ratchet to do a final tighten on everything. We do not need to over torque any of these items. There's not a lot of force that needs to be applied to these. And at this point, the battery tray is fully installed. You really just need to put your battery in and do your wiring. Once the battery is in place, you'll use the provided tie-down bracket, and you'll put that over both studs. And once you have it over both studs, you'll use the provided flanged nylon locking nuts, and you will tighten these down back and forth until you get even pressure flat across the top of the battery.